So I think we have a recording. It's something we're trying, technology.
Yeah,
Yes.
We're trying to launch a YouTube channel.
Yes.
Okay, so we have videos of all those talks that we have done for the program. Yes, and additional music ourselves.
Yeah. So it would be strategic if, let's say, like I put someone there, but as long as I look at you, then I'll be kind of looking at the camera. We'll be fine. And then you guys will appear. You guys are captured in the video, right?
I think the first two of you.
The first video, yes. Okay. Better stay awake. Do not fall asleep, otherwise it will stay post model.
Do you guys want to be on the other side of the map?
Yeah, probably.
That will,
Okay, fine. You can stay on the other side.
yeah, that will make them feel more comfortable.
More comfortable, yeah. Because just saying you're captured on the left side of the visual.
Well, next time YouTube will be our speakers, like, because YouTube got so frequently featured in our videos, like for an hour or so.
I think this chair is mine. That's the team flag. Okay, great. Very honored to be here. It's a special opportunity to be able to go back to your alma mater and speak after having graduated 4 years, 5 years. And so I know that some of you are not current student. Maybe since we have so few of us, I will ask you like your name, what you're studying. You're studying, what subject you're studying, or you're working and just happen to pop by CHK and want to attend this little seminar. Right, so start from here first.
Hi guys, I'm Ryan. So actually I'm working in other university and I graduated from UST as well and studying BBA and postgraduate education degree. So yeah.
Okay, why are you curious in this?
The topic's kind of interesting. I would say it's kind of like a link your career aspect to some politics or just interesting.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and you?
So I'm Circle. I'm actually working for the CHK.
I see.
So my office is just the fifth floor.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why I'm here because I'm just so interested by the topics you shared tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. How are you?
So I'm Tino. I'm Olivia's classmate back to many years ago.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about this topic because so far none of my interviewer asked me what is MGPE when I got a job interview.
No one cares.
No one cares.
Okay, well, so for the camera. Yeah. Yes, you?
So I'm Zoe, and actually I'm an undergraduate. I'm year one,
Mm-hmm.
and like I'm just interested in this topic. So
What major are you?
global studies.
Global studies. So it's like the new thing that the undergrad, and then there's because it started out as only the grad program, and then now there's something like undergrad that's similar.
Yeah,
Right?
we're closely related.
Closely
We
related.
share the same administrative office.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, how about you two?
So my name is Yonder. I graduated like 10 years ago, and I feel like I stopped learning since then.
I see.
I feel like I do readings, but I only do like novels or only the books I'm interested in. So I really want to learn some serious knowledge.
That's very legit one.
So I saw the information. And
Yes.
I want to learn more about the program.
Yeah, very cool. How about you?
Hi everyone, I'm Travis. I'm same as well. I'm a global studies major, but I'm in my third year of studies.
Undergrad?
Yeah.
Undergrad, okay.
So I'm interested because I'm interested to know about like your global career and what you have done in your career after your studies.
Yes.
And as well as the MGPE program, which I may consider in the future.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Great. And we have the moderator today. You can introduce yourself as
Good
well.
evening. Thanks for coming. I'm Calvin. I'm an assistant professor in this program and also in the Department of Geography and Resource Management in CHK. So thank you for coming. So it's great to have Olivia tonight. She has a wealth of experience. You have been a globetrotter. You have been in Chicago and Shanghai and Poland and Switzerland. You have a track record of involving in various pursuits. So it's great to have you here to share like what a global career really means and how it has been related to study and program.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you very much.
So thank you. And so we have a new joiner. I kind of recognize your face, but would you like to introduce yourself? I'm Olivia, this is 59.
My name is Kenny
Yes. So you're not studying at the moment?
I study here.
Oh, full-time student and also work in banking
Yeah.
simultaneously?
I'm not sure, but like this. I'm not sure, but like I working in like part-time job.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I think this is the very interesting thing about like the master's program is that everyone like at a different stage in their life and they have like different work arrangement and they find time to come study something that you do not see the financial value right away because it's not something like finance, like accounting. It's rather theoretical and quite complex. It's about global political economy and how does it actually broaden your career horizon and like maybe lead to a global career is something that I think even back in the days when I was a student, like everyone was curious about. Like it has the word like global, does it mean you get jobs automatically? Well, hate to poke your bubble. Right? I have highlighted an italic, a may, right? May broaden your horizon. There's no guarantee because after all, this is your life. Right? No one else can control your life or path or your destiny other than yourself. So what I am sharing today more so is some of the insights I get from running this program and from work experience, how you may actually extrapolate things that you learn and broaden it to a wider scope to actually how you approach life, approach your career, choosing your next career move. So I put my bio up there, okay? So to reward you, reading this long paragraph of text, I put something that is pretty interesting. You like you can read it? Distracted. So I am running a walking tour company, which is kind of not ordinary in Hong Kong. It's very interesting because it's about telling stories about Hong Kong, about its history, its culture, and day to day I meet a lot of visitors from around the world, and they all have different perspectives and different questions. It's very great. But I didn't really have a background in like tourism, sort of. I was working for Expedia, I was doing training. And I had the fortune of being able to train quite a lot of employees across Asia Pacific. So actually I come in touch with people who are at different stages of their career, from like newly joining their first job out of college, or someone who's very senior, like how you keep scaling yourself up by receiving training and getting new knowledge. Yes, I have quite a period that I was traveling around for work, which I'll talk more about. I know a lot of people are curious about that. And in my undergrad, actually have a degree in physics, so I have a science mind at my core, but I am also very curious about how the world works. We have the physics laws, but human world doesn't seem to have any laws, right? Like crisis and chaos are happening every day, like every second. So can we actually try to make sense of it? And that's what motivated me to want to study MGPE. And many people say, how do you reconcile all these things, right? Well, it's kind of like what you love as a child. You love, like, I don't know if you recognize this blue guy. It's Plankton from SpongeBob. Okay, no one. You may like Tang, right? You may like your bag, so a blue bag. You may like these stuffed toys. You may like IKEA, and they are all unrelated. But you don't need to reconcile your love for them. They all are your passions. They all what you love. Or except these things are not what I loved as a child. These are actually my current passion. Right? I still play with these things on a regular basis. So practical tips, breaking down any problem, any question statement, thesis, you break it down, right? So I'm going to share practical tips, career horizons, broadening, whether I can, like global career, whether I can do that or not, like you guys will be the judge. If there's anything, if you're like, oh, Olivia, it would be great if you can tell me more about something, feel free to ask me. So I'll try to fill in the gaps. But what that means, right? You always have a question, like have a statement, but what that means for you, the audience, right? It means no, as BS, I'm not going to tell you something that is not practical, right? Career horizons means giving you an idea of more choices, and also global career is something that's beyond local. Think bigger than your immediate circumstances. As I said earlier, no one can control your destiny other than yourself. So the power actually is in your hand. What I am sharing, or any career talk or any like educational talk that you can go to, is simply to add some ideas in your mind, or maybe you can learn from someone else's experience. Like how you use that knowledge, how you use that someone else's tips or advice, ultimately is up to you, right? So we have a newcomer who just joined. Yes, welcome. Because we're very few people, so we actually know everyone. So what's your name?
My name is Phyllis.
Phyllis. Okay. And what are you doing now? Like, is you a student, working?
Both.
Oh, great. Part-time student, part-time work?
Full-time work.
Full-time work and full-time student.
Yes.
This is something possible now. Wow, that's intense. So you're going to finish the program in 1 year, and while you're working, what's your job?
Assistant of district council.
Oh, district councilor. Ah, very interesting. District council election is coming up. Yes. Okay. So this is your first semester, right? Okay, great. So I can see you're interested in it. And what's your undergrad in?
Politics and
Politics and IR, so closely related. Okay. So again, throwing the ball back in your hands. So everyone pull up a piece of paper. Very short exercise. Get a pen. 4 topics. Start with the fun ones on the left first. Things that you care about, skills that you think you're good at, write them down. Okay, and you start writing. Try to also, after you finish those things on the left, on the right, try to write where you want to live, if it is not Hong Kong where you're immediately living, and jobs that you may want. Oh, no dream is too big. Since you're just writing it down, there's no cost. You can write as much as you want. Superman, except Superman. I don't think anyone can use it. I'll ask you to share a bit slide and I can know more of who you are as well. Don't need to think too much. I'm only going to give you 2 minutes for this quick exercise. Wait, 1 more minute. Time's up. Oh. Don't be nervous. This is not an exam. It's like writing something. Maybe it's like a letter to yourself. So there's no right or wrong answer. If you don't mind, I would like to ask you to share. Right? Start with, how about you? What do you think? What skills do you think you are good at?
That's kind of different from you guys that already start working. So I feel that skills I'm good at is analytical. I like to look at some
great. So you take joy, you derive joy from working with a lot of data and putting it into like tidy formats so they can derive a pattern and answer some questions. Yes, it's great because a lot of people are like, oh, that's too much data, I'm having a headache. You will not want to go into it. Okay, so what do you care about? There's a skill, and what do you care about? Anything in your life.
Maybe like relationships, like getting along well with people. Like not just like family, but like people like with your friends, with your classmates. Maybe in the future with your colleagues.
Yeah, future with your colleagues. Okay, so you care about having good relationship between people. And have you thought about the questions on the right? Where I want to live, work, live, and if there's a job that I want.
I want to do jobs that are related to like international relations.
International relations. Why? Oh, because you like relationships. You like having good relationships. You want that? Would that be something a driving force? Because you want people to have good relationship. You want like help bring peace to the world.
Perhaps you can say that.
Or you can say that. Yeah.
Like I want to work somewhere that my dreams maybe somewhere in America or Europe, but I don't want to be constrained to have to work in that place.
Okay, but that's a skill that you do have some sense that you want to help the world with benefits, maybe. I do like to do that. I take someone what they say, I may throw words into your mouth. It's because I think this haunting. A lot of people I meet, like who are younger in their career, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if I can do that job, so I don't dare to say. I don't dare to dream. And I usually play this devil's advocate, just like push it a little bit further and see if that works for you or not. And maybe, hey, idea is planted in his head, Travis' head tonight, and maybe one day he'll become an IR expert working for the UN, maybe in Geneva. I don't know. All right, but yeah, be more bold. This is your career. This is your life. Okay, since I've asked a gentleman, how about a girl, lady here? Yes. Feel free to share anything that you have of the four.
Well, I do care about people, like as mentioned, and I do care more about personal feelings, how people feel about the emotions of oneself, like also the mental healthness, what I care about. So where I want to leave, I would say anywhere, just a place that I find is a good place. I can live with, I can be in touch with people, the environment. So that's a place that I want to live, not geographically, it's a specific place. So telling what I'm good at, I would say, well, I'm not really good at all the things that I might say I'm good at communication and good at observation. And so that's why I love to have a job that I can interact with people and try to understand how they feel and learn from there.
Very cool. Yeah. Wonderful. But do you have a job in mind?
My mind.
Yeah.
Specific job. No.
If you're just to drink, like if there's no
If I
cost.
have to drink, I
Yeah.
would say I want to be a life coach.
Life coach.
Yeah. So part of like giving advice to students or to people who we can walk together.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, life coach. That's a very admirable job. So keep in mind. Don't forget about it. Great. So maybe you like just pick one like job that you want. Yeah.
And now I'm working in Tang. The only thing is I just stay in
In the computer, yeah. Would customer service be something that you would like? Yeah, you would like to try that? Okay. Cool. You have to keep that in mind and see if you can work your way into getting something as customer facing. work with people. Good. So this is an exercise that when I have to coach any younger ones in a company, but of course like more elaborate, fitting into the framework of academics Expedia. So like to help a employee think of career path if there are other things other than what he or she immediately is doing that they may explore beyond the current role. And it's really just like pay the role of a coach, just listen to them talk, but you ask questions to try to extract more from that person. Why I start my speech not about like raving about how great GPE program like MGPE is because when it comes to career, again, it's your choice, so it has to start from your heart. So from this point onward, I want these little seeds already in your mind. Think about it, and I'm going to give you my take on how GPE program may help you broaden your career horizons, your outlook, your perspective. And if you find something that useful to what you have on your piece of paper, feel free to jot it down. Right? This can be a sketchbook or a scrapbook. GPE, what it means, I just pulled out from Wikipedia, maybe. It's a field of study. It deals with the interaction between political, economic forces, which is what I like. You don't want to do it just in silo, that there's just econ forces or just political forces. It's always interacting, right? And there's questions of human welfare, how these might relate to state behavior, corporate interests in different parts of the world. That means there are multiple different players and they all make different decisions concerning politics, economics, and how they all play out, and can you actually study them or break it down and understand it or even predict the future, right? So the year after I graduate, I was invited to come back to do the new potential student, prospective student, like I don't know, what do we call that? The marketing meeting. Okay? So promotion session that I made a very bold statement. It's like GPE is not for everyone. Right? It's not everyone. Make it a scarcity so people want it more. That was the idea. But it is true. First of all, the price tag means that not everyone can sign up for it unless you can cough up. How much is it now?
I think next year is going to be 150,000.
150,000. Yeah. But we were like, because from our year, yes, it was 100K, and then when we meet any younger students, we're like, how much do you pay? If it is like 120K, we're like, oh, you're 2 years younger than me, because they increased 10K. This is an open joke, I think, with the GPE program. You may have to edit that part out when you put it online. I don't know. So price tag is one, but also time commitment. You have your work. It takes effort. Also, it's very interesting of a topic because it is complex. It touches on a lot of things that are beyond our immediate world. I wouldn't say Hong Kong is a place that cares a lot about like the world that much. Like, do you see on a daily conversation people talk about the war that is happening in Syria? No one, right? So you feel like if I'm interested in this topic, I am like a lone plankton floating in the universe. And I don't know where my fellow people who are interested in these topics are. And so this program gathers a niche group of people whose view or vision is broader than the immediate city. Alright, so what are some of the skills that you may have to have or you acquire through the program? Sensitivity toward the contemporary world affairs, ability to engage in abstract theoretical thought, direct observations based on data and facts, like what Jack said, assessing conflicting viewpoints. I think this like fourth bullet point is especially important. As the older you get, you realize that the world is full of them. And now with social media, I'm sure that you guys have known of the echo chamber phenomenon, where social media feeds you something that you like to read, your friends like to read, and then you can exist in this chamber that you think the world works that way. But in parallel, there's like maybe 5 or 6 or 10, like 20 more worldviews that are existing out there simultaneously with you. And we live side by side every day. We stand next to each other in the MTR, but we could have very different world point views or take on the things. So how do you assess them, and how do you make sense of that? Right? I don't know if it's always reconcilable to put the different viewpoints together to find a compromise. Understanding cultural diversity, which is taking things beyond the surface. You're like, oh, I traveled to that place in Central Asia, it's great, food's great, the climate is like, man, so. But beyond that, well, taking a GPE view that you actually ask more questions about, well, how do the people there live? What's their economic, political situation is like? Are they happy? Right? Oral and written communication. To argue your viewpoints, you need to write well. You need to be clear, otherwise your professors like rewrite your essay. So, critical skills. And I start with one key thing. Delving deeper in some of the things that it will help you. I put them into like special pink and white statements. It's a program that helps you ask more questions. Right? Anyone has a question? Sorry, I don't know if that joke works. I like this like rhetorical question. So we actually have another newcomer. This is Charles. Charles, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Charles. I'm a first student. And actually I'm paying 150,000.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Already, yes. Yeah. Yes.
We used to work together.
Yeah, ex-colleague. Yeah, it so happened that he also joined Tang for this program a few years later. Yes. What's your current job? Because you're doing it all the
I'm
time.
currently in the finance industry, insurance industry, and I also run a restaurant.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
See? Right, career?
That's pretty much it.
Many different interesting directions. Is there a class that you're taking that with the MGPE program that you find very interesting?
Very interesting. Well, I only did 2 classes in this semester. I'm a part-time student. But I think the curriculum one is pretty interesting, not from the content itself. I mean,
I think there are many parts to the video that we had to edit out.
what happened here is lazy. But I guess I agree what you said. The social media, the active funnel, whatever it is. It's only halfway through the program right now. It opens my mind about a lot of different views on the same topic. It's actually existing, not just in the world, but in class already.
Yeah.
With different professors.
Yes.
I think that's going to be very beneficial for me to accept different views.
Yes, that is true. Well, yes, except when I was teaching training in this video, we have this word that you show understanding, you empathize, you understand where they come from. It doesn't mean you have to agree with that person. So it's this understanding side topic. Anyway, so asking questions. If you ask any professor who teaches like a GPE program, I think that's one thing that they find very challenging is that to get the students to ask questions. Right? Any questions? And usually silent. Right? So try to use, if you are studying GPE program, use this as a chance to learn to overcome this fear, embarrassment, whatever like the feeling that is holding you back from asking questions. I myself think that if there's one statement I have to go back to tell myself from like those years ago, is this: get into the habit of asking questions. Do not be afraid, ashamed, or shy of asking questions. It actually gets easier and easier the more you do it. Ideas and thoughts to come out, and if you don't ask the questions, your professor is not going to know like what you're thinking, and you may not know what your fellow students are thinking, and that's actually what is precious, is hear about other people's perspectives. It's real lot textbooks, it's textbook, but they are written down already. But what's in someone else's mind is active, is alive. And also the third point, yes, consumerism, like Hong Kong, true blood Hong Kongers. Like, we pay for this degree. I learn what I want to learn. If you don't ask questions, you're not going to learn stuff as much as if you learn more, ask more questions. Alright, so I did my thing, but I still didn't feel that I made made it worth all my investment, probably, because I didn't ask enough questions. So as for, this is something that I've been asking myself. In my work, I do walking tours, and I did a walking tour for a bunch of international students, like around the same age, and then I have like local students. And local students were like, okay, and then any question? No question. And international students, they were like, oh, they can't wait to tell you what they think, and then the ideas, the questions, etc. Right? So how come? Like, I feel this is my bold statement. I try to make a theory on it. Is that we, from a very young age, we are taught to pitch ourselves against each other. Your fellow classmates potentially would get a better score than you, and hence get to a better school than you. Right? So you don't want that to happen. So you do subconsciously have a view that you're competing with your fellow classmates. You have exams, we have scores, we have ranking. I don't know. When you're primary school, you have like, oh, they had the ranking 1 and 2, and then you're like, oh, you bao mei is you're the last ranked student in your class. So leave all those things behind, because this is a degree that's a master's degree. You've finished your undergraduate already. You've reached kind of the baseline, what you think get you a job. But once you're in a master's program, it is not about a test. It's not a competition. No one cares about your GPA. I think who else said this question? Oh yes, Tino said that. Is that no one even cares what GPE is?
Oh
yeah. So yes, you did a master, great for you. You take initiative to learn more stuff, but that's about it. The employer may not, if it is not directly related, may not want to know more about what actually you learned. But hey, the things you learn will become your skill sets, so that's useful. So no one cares about your GPA once you complete your degree, so just relax. What you learn in the class matters more than what score you get at the end of the semester. And your fellow schoolmates, these are very interesting bunch of people. I can't stress this enough. They pay so much money to learn an obscure, not obscure, a subject that they may not even be able to apply on a daily basis. Why? It's because they're really interested in these things. We tend to be a bit of a nerdy, geeky crowd, seriously. But they are very interesting people, because they like to, like what Travis did, they like to dig deep into a subject and figure out, oh yeah, that's a very interesting trend. These are people who share similar interests with you. They're not your competitors. So be bold in experimenting, throwing ideas out, be generous in sharing ideas, and be humble in asking questions. Studying GPE helps you analyze the problem from different perspectives. Yes. Just reiterating. Anyone has already come across this table? Apparently it's from this old article that's been copied many times, photocopied many times. Like some of the smudges are passed down generation to generation. It will show up in one of the like printed essay that you have to read, I think. It's comparison of 3 conceptions of political economy. Mainly the liberalism, Marxism, and mercantilism. I think that's like first semester you'll be able to learn something like that. It's the different views on the world's political economy. Like, for example, like liberalism, it sees that households, firms, like individual homes, and then families, or a company as a unit of agent, whereas if you contrast with mercantilism, it's nation states, like the country comes first. And then what liberalism is actually the global welfare. We want to maximize it. Everyone gains. Like if we this liberal economy, where mercantilism is that, you know what, nation state comes first. I want to maximize my country's interest, my nation state's interest, and further it as much as I can. Right. So this is probably what the professor would do in a class. And how do you come to actually own these things? Own these ideas. Show of hand, who is hearing these 3 categories for the first time? Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right. So the others have some sense. Well, I think that role playing is good. All right. So female in the classroom will do the female role, and then the guys will do guys. And then I'll put you in a hypothetical situation and see, and then you have to express how you would behave if you take on that hat, like of that worldview. You know, I believe nation states come first, or you believe in like it's the beneficial of the global welfare. Well, if you don't understand, because I only have a very simple table here, I'm skipping the Marxism in the middle. This is Marxism. And so the guys who take on liberalism, the girls take on the head of mercantilism. If you don't understand what these 2 things are, Google. Seriously. No need to memorize anything. So just Google, and then like spend three minutes like Googling it, liberalism, what it means, and okay, let's say, that should be like, the boys have to work with the girls in your economy. Actually, group discussion, right? Okay, so all the girls gather together. Yes, you guys have to discuss, like look up what like liberal, wait, you guys are mercantilism. Oh, the girls are the mercantilist. Okay, so Google search what mercantilist is. This is modern day learning. You just Google search it immediately. Would if you want to join? Yes. I think everyone's learning. Yeah, you should feel free to join. Alright, so guys, gather together. We're going to go over there. Yes. How? Okay. Well, I need to give you a situation, a scenario. What's a good scenario? You guys are two countries, all right, next to each other. You share a river in the middle, and there is global warming, so the river is running out of water. How would you approach the situation? If the girls have a mercantilist view as your country, okay, and then the guys, yours is a liberalism country. I don't even know the liberalist or what's the adjective. Yeah. I am very fussy with these terms. Hey, Google search it. I don't remember these things either.
Reduce the prosperity account.
Yeah. Another consequence, you have one river that the two countries share. It goes like right in the middle of the two countries. Yeah. So what would you do? What would you say to your neighbor?
Say to a neighbor.
Yes. What would you do? What would you say to your neighbor? Or you would not say anything. You just start fighting them. So
what's the question?
you guys know
What should say to neighbor?
佢講個 situation 係有條河跟住
Okay, 我哋係廣東話 OK。
係咪 ？Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys understand company? Oh no, okay, no,
Oh, yeah.
I can't see it. Because we're in the compass. So now we're in two countries. We're just across the river. So because of global warming, the water is getting
We share the one river.
yeah, we shared.
Or who is the like upper?
I think we're
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
we're not in the opposite river.
Okay.
We're sharing.
And the global warming affect the flow of the water, and we have resources. Sorry.
Yeah, you should.
Just to boost up the population.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just like balancing the numbers.
Can we recap the question?
okay, the question is that we are neighboring countries.
Okay.
There's country A here, we country B, and then there's a river that we share.
Okay.
Okay, but now because the climate change is running out of water.
Okay.
So probably research about how important that river is to us.
So the question is how we should work with them to
So
make
we
such
should,
a-
so our response will depend on the hat that we are putting on. So we follow mercantilism. So how does that affect our response to this problem?
Yes. You mean unilateral. They want to have a peace talk with you. And how do you share the water?
So it's also the American policies, like we don't care that we don't care about domination.
Exactly. Yeah, conflict shows. So we get the work that we can leverage. Like it's not like we can just pay and then we work out the costs of this.
So what would be your first move if you have to do something about the situation?
Alright, so what I'm going to do, just like play chess, I'll ask like each one of you side to make one move. You can like raise to have a peace talk or not. Have a conference like of your scientists, your best mind, that may be your proposal, and then this side can also propose an action.
Like
Right.
war, yeah.
So you can
You need to understand like your resource base is. Like I think we can find out like whether you can scramble this resource in order to sustain it.
So if we go to the wall, we can all of them, then we can own the whole river, then we can double our resources.
Running out of water.
Alright.
So probably you want to scramble all the resources that they have.
Okay, you guys come up with an action. Well, it's very dynamic, so you may only think of like maybe 1 or 2 moves, and then see how the other side say, and then you may have to respond to it and plan, strategize on the go.
So I think usually, like in our country, we
Why the river is important to us?
that's different. Just talk first, because I don't think that
Okay, I'll let the liberalism side. Okay, liberalism side. You guys have the chance to make the first move. What would you do?
Let's talk.
Let's talk. Hey, the guys are talking to you. The boys are saying, "Girls, let's talk."
What
And
do you
how
do?
we talk? Yeah, not just ask a question back, but you need to have an action. What is the action that you girls want to take? Based on you're a mercantilist. Don't worry, there's no, just throw something out, anything. Okay. Yes. I think you have something to say.
Do you still want to talk with them?
Yeah, do you want to
Yeah, if only offer something.
offer something?
Over something. Over what? What can you offer us? What can you offer us?
Is that what liberals talk?
It's not real. It
That's
is
what we have
about.
to discuss twice.
Want us to offer something to you, then you offer something to us. That's how trade works.
Trade works, yes. Okay. Economics determine politics, yes. This side is not quite mercantilist.
we want to
Yeah, or we don't mind to go to the wall, so
Oh.
yeah.
Okay, they give you a threat. Well, yeah, give you a threat. They don't mind going to war
Yeah, we don't mind.
to fight over the water.
But the river may be destroyed or polluted because of war.
But if we kill you all, then we
We have to lose
yeah, we still got the
The
left
river,
Yeah.
whatever is left, yes.
But that is uncertain whether you can really get the clean river or not.
Oh, they are implying that they may poison the water.
That's not what you want to get.
Yes.
that one.
Alright, so I think we can leave it there. Good job. Round of applause to everyone. We're throwing you guys that may not, like some of you may not actually like have a full understanding. It only gave you 2 minutes to do a Google search, it's like what that theory, what that concept means. And it's, well, bound to be not perfect, but that's the reality in life. I think this is good. It is, well, maybe you can say this is not good, this is kind of weird. But at the same time, what I try to do with this exercise is that very often we learn it as a theory, and if we don't really do a role play and put on that hat, you may not, and stand against someone with a different view, you may not really understand what that concept or what that Marxism means to you, right? So I encourage you to always, this is what in all the work, Alright, so what's in it for me? What does it mean? Is that you learn anything, you try to turn it into money that you can put in your pocket. What does it mean to you? Right? You're learning Marxism, you're learning Marxism. What it means is that, hey, I may not always need to be a nice person, or whoever I'm dealing with may not be a nice person. The other way would be a conflictual person that they would rather fight than to have a peaceful settlement with me, right? And maybe one day, not in a global level, but on a personal level, that may be a person that I meet at work, in a relationship, maybe it's my in-law, mother-in-law, right? I don't know, but so these are things that may become, like any concepts that you learn, you try to ask yourself, or what it means for me, is that something that I can turn it into money, not literal money, but just conceptual money that I can put into my own pocket. Right? So role play helps. Great, so if you guys want, you may stay where you are, or you can go back to your original seat where you feel comfortable. Just take any seat. There's so many seats here. Continue on. Studying GPE helps you understand better how the world works. I use the analogy. Similar to what I was saying, actually, same line, is that anyone can help you Google search. How tall is a T-Rex? Very quickly. Actually, I don't even know. I was supposed to have done that before, but how tall is a T-Rex? Height T-Rex, ask Google. It was great.
3.7 to 6.1 meters.
Sorry? 2 to 6
meters. 3.7 meters to 6.1 meters.
6.1 meters. Let's just take it round it off, like about 6 meters. 6 meters of a T-Rex. What does that mean? 3 doors. Ah, very good. All right. So someone has a concept. Yeah, that's how you turn something very abstract into something pretty concrete that put in your head. It means something. It means if you put the dinosaur, the T-Rex, in the middle of, I think this is Times Square, it is going to reach up to this billboard, Levi's, and when it's wag its tail, it is going to hit this hotel building or shopping mall. That's when I learned science. This is how I conceptualize things. It's not just a bunch of facts and data. What does it mean to me in real life? You try to put it in a comical case, like this little dinosaur is going to block 2 lanes of traffic and is going to break the windows on the 3rd floor of this building. Right? So anything that you learn, try to turn it into something that you can relate to. And just now, what we did, we have this fictional case, 2 countries next to each other, and we try to pit yourselves against the other. But if I give you one more context, is that the guys, so liberalism, yes, you guys are liberalism, you actually represent the United States, which this figure, anyone knows what this figure is? Yes? Pardon? Market share of GDP. Yes, GDP. Yeah, that's the GDP. And then for the girls, which is a mercantilist, you are Argentina. They're not next to each other. Just imagine they're next to each other. But your share of the global GDP is 0.8%, where your next door neighbor, if it is United States, is 24.4%. Right? Suddenly, that changes the game. Right? This side talks about all peace. Well, this side is so much littler in power that does it make sense that they want to be stronger and then fight more? Maybe like then suddenly things, you put it into context, you put it into like what does it mean for a country if they want to take on a mercantilist approach, if their opposing side or the other counterpart is a much more powerful and wealthy country. Studying GPE helps you learn to process complex factors within complex relationships. I think when we were really young, we watch movies, we watch TV shows, cartoons, we watch fairy tales from Disneyland, we watch Batman. There seems to be pretty clear black and white in the world. But the more you study GPE, I think that's what I got from it. You get more jaded. You guys know that word? Jaded? Cynical. How do you guys say it in Cantonese? More jaded, more cynical. 即係呢個世界冇公義㗎啦，係咁樣㗎啦，唔使做咁多嘢，做咁多嘢都冇乜用㗎。嗰啲咧係啦，嗰啲咁嘅態度啦。So it is not as black and white, but hey, guess what? That's the reality of life. I think when I finished the GPE program, I actually the jadedness was so strong that I had to leave these things behind for a while, because I was quite an idealist as I grew up. Anyway, so I don't think this picture is up to date because I think it's like 2000. Oh wait, I think it's up to date. October events. But I'm sure you guys that if you're a bit plugged into world news, you know that there's been Kurdish forces, the conflict in the region along the northeastern border of Syria between, like, there's a Turkey at play, then there also Russia is there, and then US. Donald Trump made that big decision, which was very heavily criticized, to pull out the US forces and left the Kurdish forces that were originally helping to fight the ISIS in northern Syria suddenly on their own, right? And then the Turkey forces pushed, and then they built a safe zone along the border, right? So it's a 100-word version of what happened. And for further details, you can go back to read the news. But it is very complex, but that's what we would like to study. And we take time to try to understand the interdynamics when you're in the GPE program. And hey, as we try to analyze these things and not just like, okay, you know, there's a narrative and you just read it and you forget about, well, what this program does is try to give you framework and systems to study these things. Right? You break it down. So for those who love data, I love putting it into a tidy, nice format, visual table. This is quite a great chart. I'm like, ooh, very happy. Not happy, sorry. But you have these smiley face, emoji, whatever you call them. But you have all the different players in this regional conflict, and you map it out. It's like, how do they like each other? And guess what? This is not a static view. Do we have, finding where the US and allies is here, where the Kurds, they were originally friends when this chart was drawn. Do you think it's still a smiley face today? I think not. Right? The Kurds seen the U.S., the Donald Trump's decision as a big, what do you call, traitor, yes, betrayal, big betrayal. And they even threatened that, hey, ISIS may come back because when we were using us to help you fight the ISIS, and now that you betray us, is what ISIS may come back. So it's this dynamics, and then you give a system, things get even more interesting, and you somehow seem to have more understanding. Underlying is still very complex, and who knows. So we learn complex topics, and we try to understand them. So we need tools like mind map to map out the different areas. It's messy, but after you do it, it somehow gives you a bit more order in the chaos. So studying GPE enriches your conversations. That's something pretty practical that you can use. I'm sure you guys may have been in situations where like, oh, what should we talk about now? Like, studying GPE means you likely would be more aware of global events, and these can come into your topics, conversation topic. And once you get there, where it becomes practice that, hey, you talk about these things, you talk about different views, perspectives on a regular basis, and you realize that, hey, some of my friends are getting a bit boring because all they talk about is food. Just be aware of that, right? So conversations, now you have a new tool, you have a new paradigm, new perspectives that you can talk about, which are the international perspectives, right? And I remember when I was studying GPE, every week you have to do quite a lot of readings. And also on top, professor would like you to read the newspaper. And we'll talk about some of the headline news, how under the GPE framework, how you understand it, how you dissect the topic. Is it like if it's actually aligned with some of the theories or some of the scholars' thoughts, school of thought, then you try to cite how similar or unsimilar they are, which is a very good exercise, and I don't practice anymore, so I miss those things. And even reading the news, you also have to be aware that news are not all neutral, or they may claim to be neutral, but actually it is itself a constructivism? No, that's not. That just taking the US news media, or maybe not, there's some of the big ones in the globe, like CNN, it's, what was it, that is the overall source reliability. The higher it is, the more reliable, and then you have some of the things that in recent years have popped up, like I think Breitbart is here, and then I think that's Fox News over there, and then you have like a spectrum. So studying GPE actually enlightens me to realize that I think there is something about the political line. I didn't show the x-axis, whether it's liberal or more conservative. I have always thought that, well, it's a great source, and then my classmate in GPE is like, well, yeah, aren't you aware that they are very liberal leaning? It's like, what's wrong with liberal leaning? Well, no, yeah, once you study the liberalism that they talk about like trade, they talk about maximizing wealth for households or corporations, then there are things that they may not push or their view is they don't share that side of the view. So you do need to be aware when you're reading any news source what kind of political standing that media they have. So GPE gives you that kind of goggles or mindset. So conversation, back to the part of the conversation, that no regular people, well, not regular people, normally we talk about things that like hello surface, but there are a lot of things that are underneath, like the iceberg, that you can still tap into and talk about. So, for example, you meet someone who comes from Yangon. Oh, yeah, Yangon, travel there. It's great. The Myanmar's food is great, very delicious. Now, after wearing the GPE hat, you may say, Myanmar has been opening up to more foreign investment. How has your life changed in that?
That's boring.
Pardon?
That's boring.
That's boring? Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Yes, that's just my take. What is interesting is that I'm sure you guys are aware of the Hong Kong's situation since this summer. When I am abroad, people who take an interest to ask me about the situation, I like to share that. Right? It's not. People feel like, the other party from so far away in the world take interest in what is happening in my city or country, which is kind of cool. Right? So if you try to do that, and I don't know, that may be boring. Like bring such a serious topic in a casual night of going out drinking. But maybe you'll meet someone who appreciates that perspective or that question, that you take interest in their local affairs, that feel closer for. I don't know. But why that may be useful? Okay, let me say, maybe you still need your drinking, your banter, your charming socializing skill. But having another bag of skills that you can have serious talks from a global perspective doesn't hurt. Why? Because who knows you'll come in touch with. In job affair, I always share with my people I train is that there's actually a lot of jobs are not broadcast just on like website, or the company's website. There are quite a lot of jobs are hidden in the job market. How? Is that, well, for example, companies hire on a regular basis, so they can always take in resume, and whoever comes right fit, they'll hire without possibly making a post, right? And then also, and there is a new role that opens up. Very often, a company first asks the existing employees if they know someone who fit the bill already before they go outward to search. Because guess what? That's much cheaper. That's more efficient. You have the referral of a person you know, and that's a very good way of getting a job that you don't need to compete in the wide open ocean market. So you have to know the networking, knowing the right people at the right time. How you build a network, sometimes like just asking questions, yes, it will be awkward. And going to networking events can be quite often part of it as well, because you don't know what like the other person come from, and GPE does really benefit me in giving me a wider spectrum of things that I can talk about. And I feel also more confident. Because when I was younger, I feel like, I don't know the world. If I talk to someone from let's say from Buenos Aires, I don't know what to talk about. So I open my mouth, okay? I talk to someone, I meet someone from like, but at least GPA give you a more broader view that you feel, hey, actually, I don't know, I'm not at zero level about your country or what's happening there. I at least can talk intelligently, semi-intelligently about some of the topics in your country. And that helps expand your network. And if you still have the chance of studying abroad, because I thought there would be some undergrad students here, and studying abroad or traveling, you can take it onto another level. The network you build, you try to deepen that relationship beyond just the superficial things and see if you can go deeper into understanding actually the culture, the politics, the economics, and how it affects the lives and the perspectives of those people who live in those places. To recap, GP helps you ask more questions. So far, not many questions because I haven't given you much chance, but we'll have a Q&A later. Analyze the problem from different perspectives, better understand how the world works. Process complex factors within complex relationships. Enrich your conversation. I'll give you a international perspectives and expand your networking ability. And since we talk about the topics about global career, jobs with global mobility, or yes, jobs with global material, or maybe one better title would be like, what skill sets will give you better global mobility? And I dig out something from LinkedIn that skills most uniquely found in people who move around, not stay in one place for work, right? You see social media marketing, mechanical engineering, Java development, which is computer science stuff, life sciences, military, defense, national security, foreign language translation, and you can do assignments, public policy and international relations. Study global topic, a global perspective, actually can be beneficial if you move around. Skills most uniquely found movers doesn't mean like that person only has the skill and can move around. It probably means that that person may have a combination of one or two or three or multiple of these things. But out of this group of people who do move around the most, one of the most commonly found trait is that they have some sort of skill in public policy and international relations. So keep that in mind. And well, this is from another school's GPE site that, okay, what are some of the possible career paths for GPE graduates? If you don't find anything on it that interests you, don't despair. It doesn't mean you have to quit the program right away. Skills are very transferable. What you learned back in those days will benefit you at some point in your life. Especially if you have to deal with complex problems. Okay, just take an example. Office dynamics, office politics. Well, maybe because who you are dealing with has a very different view of how he or she approaches his career. She's looking only for herself income. I shouldn't gender. He maybe, okay, gee, sorry, way too PC here. They may be very much about personal gain and not about a collaborative effort where you're more of a people person. Well, then how do you work with someone like that? Because not everyone's the same as you. Well, GPE may equip you with some of these skills. All right, case study. So there's this company, I'm not sure if you guys, anyone has traveled to North Korea, like, or interesting places. There's a new startup travel agent. It's called Globe Travel. And these two were born after the 90s. Started this really interesting travel agent that, because you can, if you can read the Chinese here, it says that they developed a North Korea travel tour to North Korea, and that's actually how they made the debut, how they found their niche in the market. They were widely featured, even at a TV show, and they can actually bring guests to North Korea, and not only to North Korea, but to go into people's homes to have a meal. And why I think this example is relevant is because they have a rather academic approach to their tour. You actually, some of their tours are led by professors, right, to learn deeper about like GPE, sociology, whatever about that location, or maybe geography, environmental resources, etc. But they also try to equip their participants with more intellectual knowledge. They will organize talk, seminars about the place that they are traveling to, and some of, I think their tour guides have really extensive research that they are equipped with to share, not just from a very superficial tourism view what North Korea about, but it's also different dynamics about it. So that's how you can put a GPE education to use, because someone has transformed it into a business model. Right? So, okay, back to myself. As I said at the beginning, I'll share a little bit about my travel. I didn't do it after GPE. I actually did my work overseas before. And so I can share with you, I was much less confident back then, because I feel like I know very little about the world. And I'm more like, oh, well, I just want to get my life, get my IKEA bowls, get my next meal. And I didn't. I wasted the chance while I was have a fortune to be able to work abroad to ask some questions and know more about the local way. But okay, so learn from my experience, didn't ask enough questions. But how you can find a career or find jobs abroad, you may not need to have a glamorous job that's all paid for. You'd be like expat or why I say that is because people see my travel photos and it's like, oh great, like Olivia is now in Poland. Well, how I got the job is because I think, well, as whatever would take me to work in a different place, I actually work in a factory that makes, anyone knows these things here, they have valves. They open and close for heating system. It's not a glamorous job at all. Alright, and this is, actually I just pulled it up just now, the path to my factory. On the outskirts of Krakow, that's where I was working. I just took the job that allowed me to travel, and I got to be abroad. Was there a chance that I would continue to stay with that company and into a global career? Definitely. And just a bit of context is that the manufacturing that hired me back then is see me having a Chinese skill, that they are trying to move manufacturing from Western Europe, which includes Switzerland, England, or even from the US, to Eastern Europe, which is a lower cost economy, and to maybe ultimately move to China. So that's actually why I was hired, and that in itself is actually how global economy, globalization working in a little girl back then, very young, in her role and in her job, in her job opportunities. And I didn't realize that that's the big picture of why I was hired, and only come to realize it after I finished the role. But I guess I loved my city too much, so I decided to come back to Hong Kong. Otherwise, my ex-colleagues back in those days who went through the training at different places, and some are working in Switzerland, into Switzerland, some are now in the US, etc. in the different world. So it's not a career that Hong Kong people normally would associate, that how you get into trouble. You're not working with McKinsey. I was working in manufacturing. They're very practical, but they do need people who work around the world. So just to give you an idea. And to conclude, I show you, don't know if anyone read from my profile where I was born and raised. It's home. Once you are in the work field, you are yourself. And how your employers, potential employers see you is well, your skill, your person, individual, your thoughts, your beliefs, your ability, your stories, or maybe use your city and your actions is become your brand. And you carry that brand with you everywhere you go in the world. No one can take that away from you. Right? It's not tangible things that you leave the house behind. It is, you can't bring the house along. As possessions, you may lose it in a financial downturn. But what stays in your brain, what stays with, well, how actions, what actions you take, it stays with you, and that is your brand. And that is enough of a resource, an asset to carry you around the world and look for whatever you want to do. I'll leave you with this last quote that's Google searching. Not because I've been reading this guy's famous essay, no, I just Google search and see what fits into the bill. The only person you're destined to become is the person you decide to be. Who would you like to be? Start with today. So that's the topic of my speech, and thank you very much. Thank you for attending this very wonderful experience.
Just 150,000. I think you guys should really join.
Yeah. Love your marketing skills. Okay.
Successful examples here today.
Yes.
Yeah. Not just Olivia, but a few more.
Yeah, definitely. Current student or past student. So, please, open the floor to any questions.
Okay, I have one.
Wonderful.
So, what's the class size?
What's the class size?
Yeah, the cohort of the class, and how's the combination of people?
The competition?
Combination. The kind of people they meet.
Yeah. Okay, yes, you can speak to icon. I've left too long.
Okay, so for GPE, but it really depends on the courses that you're attending because we have a combination of compulsory and elective courses. And compulsory ones, the class size will be a bit bigger. We used to have as many as about 70, but now because even some of the compulsory modules, we run it on both semesters, so we reduce the class size to like 40 something. So that would give you more opportunities to really get into touch with your lecturers there. And for the background of students, for the last few years, I think most of the students are either from Hong Kong or from other parts of China. We do get students from other parts of the world, but they, to be honest, not that many. And their career background would be very, very diverse. So Olivia has a first degree in physics. We do have people who have no training in social science at all. So there are people who have studied mathematics, business, engineering, but somehow they feel like they want to understand a bit better about the world.
Questions? Yes. Yes.
Your current job is quite different to your previous one.
Oh yes.
And does this program take any part of it in decision?
Take the part. Well, I was just bored at old job. And so, did it prompt me? I wouldn't say directly. Yeah, it's quite a big change. But I guess well, studying a master's is to enrich my knowledge and challenge myself intellectually. That's always the idea. I don't want to be like stagnant. I don't want to just do my job. I want to always be enriching myself. So after the master's degree, it's like I don't have things to enrich myself. Yeah, but I'm not going to go for PhD. And then I realized I really don't like the job is not exciting enough. So I quit and look for something more exciting. So I would have quit earlier had I not been doing GPE, which enriched me intellectually after work. Yeah. So I don't know if that's not a causation. But I find very useful in my current job because I would dissect different Hong Kong situation and turn it into experiences into city. We have one about 1967 riot in Hong Kong. We have one about Money World, how Hong Kong gets so rich. And the Money World tour was originally developed by my colleague, which mostly talked about how some of the big banks were set up in the city. You have HSBC, Bank of China, Standard Chartered. And then one day I look at it, it's like, wait a second, but how that doesn't tell me what are the big forces at play. You talk about the finance system, but it's not just the banks that are rebuilding the wealth, accumulating wealth in the city. How about the Chinese forces? When did they start having a bigger influence? Okay, how about the colonial forces, the British? You have Jardine, you have one other side, escape me. And then now in the modern era, Hong Kong, like its relationship with China, is it really true? It's because 我们背靠祖国, that's why we got the wealth today. Right? So these are questions that GPE taught me to ask. And now I'm looking at my tour is if I can actually give it more contemporary context of how Hong Kong gets so rich in the last, say, 30 years. What framework should I see it? Because there's a lot of information. How do you narrow it down to be a narrative that can easily understandable for the tour guests within 2 hours, 2.5 hours, right? And then it's also something that you may go to a site, oh, this is Bank of China. It's not just a bank, but there's actually other functions that it play in helping the greater China, like financial system, etc., etc. I don't know. I haven't explored into it, but it's only just something that in the last 2 days I was like, we are not doing enough of that tour. Other questions? Cool. If not, then this is the end of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, we need to take a photo.
But just for the